Here's the finished pattern or transom, one side of it. Now, what I did was I just took this and I'm using this for my pattern for the other side. So I'm going to have 2-inch square tubing making this, transom, sandwiching it in between. It's going to be a real nice, thick, sturdy transom. Now, what I want to do with this next piece is I want some setback on my boat. I don't want that boat sitting straight, the transom sitting straight up and down. I want a little bit of setback. And what that'll kind of do is that'll allow that motor to, whenever it's trimmed all the way down, to actually be cocked just like that. And you want a little bit of setback in a transom, because whenever your boat comes up on plane, you ideally want that motor trimmed all the way down so that it's actually trying to push that front of that boat up and it creates lift. Whereas if you have your transom straight and your motor is not being able to tilt forward that way, your motor's just pushing flat. And you don't jump up out of the, your hull don't jump up, you don't get a real good hole shot. So that's pretty important, that setback. So what I want is I want about 11 or 12 degrees of setback. So what I did was I took a block that was the same thickness as this transom is going to be. I set it on my transom. I took an angle finder. I set that block to 11 to 12 degrees, and I measured that gap that's being created because you're setting it back. Now the reason that's important is because when welding aluminum, fit up is really important. It's awfully hard to weld gaps. Not so much with steel, but it's hard to weld gaps. Fit up is real important with aluminum. Now, if I have made this transom straight and then I go to tilt it back, I'm going to have, a substantial gap on the inside that I'm going to have to deal with and weld. So what that gap was a heavy 1/4 inch. It was about 5/16 inches. So on this pattern here, what I did was, you can see I've traced a line. I've set my my pattern up here, but I've made this second piece about 5/16 inches taller than this piece, just on the bottom. And so what that'll give me, whenever I actually weld this thing up, you'll see that lip there, and then as I roll that thing back, it will be at the correct setback, and I'll have tight fit up on the inside and the outside. So you gotta kind of remember that. So anyway, just a couple other quick things here. You guys are seeing in the time lapse me use a straight edge on everything. I could freehand a lot of these cuts. I know I could. That being said, I'm building this boat. I'm building one of these boats. This is my money, my time. The couple of minutes that it takes me to set up a straight edge is worth it. If I move that saw a little bit here and there, that's a problem I gotta fix. And to me, it's just easier to set up a straight edge. Also, this blue boat behind me that you guys keep hearing me reference and see me referencing, I keep taking measurements and kind of mimicking things off of that. That's my big walleye boat, or it was until I built this thing, or my big V-bottom boat rather. That's an Alumacraft competitor. It's a deep V, and I absolutely love the way that boat handles big rough water. So naturally, I'm going to take the best things of that boat and use this in this boat. So that's the reason you guys keep seeing and hearing me reference that boat, is just because it rides great. Biggest problem with this boat here is, because it's a super deep V, the front end is not very big. So I'm limited with my front deck space on this boat, where with this boat here, I'm going to have a ton of deck space. And I'm going to have about another 7 foot of boat. So anyway, that's kind of the reason why you guys keep seeing me reference that. It's a good all-around boat, and I like the way it handles, so naturally I'm going to mimic what works. What I've done is I've laid out here on a nice level surface. This is the very back of the transom. This is the smaller of the two pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 2x2 square tubing and I'm going to start cutting this in all the way around the perimeter, and then right there where the motor is going to sit, I'm going to add additional blocking, so that way whenever I do bolt my motor, I'm not going through basically a 2-inch hollow gap. I'll be going through more or less a, you know, a rigid, not quite solid, but a rigid backing. Installed. One thing to note whenever you do this, you're dealing with this flat piece that's got all these angles. You never want to put a lot of heat in one area for a long time. You know, this thing may have a tendency to warp. This is all 3/16, so it's pretty thick material, but at the same time, you know, what a little here, go over there, what a little there, what a little there, you know, and just kind of keep the heat evenly transferred across the plane. That way this thing doesn't have a tendency to want to warp on me or kind of get that wavy oil can looks. Done there is welded up the whole transom, and I've got this this pink board insulation here, and I've set this inside of the transom. So this does a couple of different things. Number one, it adds a little bit of flotation, and number two, it does more of a sound deadening, you know, so you don't get that echoey sound through the water. I'll have this throughout the bottom of the boat as well. So we got the whole transom, the back end welded up. I'm about ready to sandwich the two together. So as you guys may be able to see, or may be able to see in the time lapse, I had a little bit of a screw up. I messed up a little bit. Whenever I laid this thing out, I forgot to measure my height of my my sides. What I did was I went up to my width, and then I went straight up, and I had carelessly forgot to measure the height for my sides. Luckily, right as soon as I started welding everything in, I caught myself, and I was able to fix it with the same material and everything else. But you know, this would be the bottom of the boat, and I need 28 inches for my sides before I start going up straight. And I had came out with my measurement, and I made that cut. I had initially intended on making that straight mark, and when I laid it out, I just had forgot. So you know, that's bad on me. Didn't take really any extra time, but it's done now. You can see the point from right there to right there 5 inches below. That's 28 inches. That's going to be basically the width of my sides, and then it flares and goes up again. So no big deal. Just had to make that cut. But this is the finish of the inside of the transom here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer the center mark of all of this tubing to this sheet right there, and then I will take that saw and I'll make rips all the way around. Just dive in and plunge cut. The thickness, that blade's got a real thick kerf on it, and then whenever I lay this on top of this sheet on top of this transom, then I'll have a place to weld. I'll have a groove, so I'll be able to weld that and then grind down flush with what you're going to be able to see visible, and then the rest, you know, will be below the deck, so it won't really matter. But that's how I'm going to get my good weld on the on this connecting sheet, and then the top edge where you'll see will all be welded and then ground down, you know, to give the illusion that it's one solid piece of aluminum for the transom. So anyway, I'm gonna get set up for that, and I've got to make, you can see what I'm talking about here. I've got to make this rip. So what I did was, whenever I was laying it out, is I came up to what would be the width of my boat, and then I went straight up, and I should have went from that point to 28 inches, which should be right in there, and I forgot to make that rip. So that was my bad. I got to do that real quick, and then we'll move on. No biggie. You know, you can make all the mistakes you want as long as you can fix them and hide them. And you know, this was just one mistake. It's no big deal. I can fix it, and we'll be moving on. Alright, so just about to weld this thing up here. Let me show you what I got and kind of illustrate what I've been talking about. So what I've done is I've taken my worm drive saw there. Now that blade's got like an it's a heavy 1/8 inch kerf on it. So what I did was I measured out, and you can see I just basically plunge cut in 2 blade widths. So I've got about 1/4 inch there of a gap, and what I'll be able to do now is I'll be able to fill that, and that'll give me you know, basically weld into the back side of all my reinforcing. I went all the way down the sides, around the perimeter on my cross bracing and everything else. Now, I didn't do anything up around this part because this will all be welded tight anyway, so there wasn't really any need to go through all that. Not to mention, all of this is going to be visible, so to keep from grinding everything down, since I want this smooth, I would rather just keep all the grinds, you know, right there. It's just going to save me a lot of work, and it'll still be welded in, you know, very securely. So anyway, you can see here I've left my gap on the bottom. That worked out nice, so whenever I go to pitch this thing, I'll have plenty of setback on my transom. So anyway, now all I've got to do is I've got to weld all these up, and then weld the top, blend all that in real nice, and then I just need to weld that top 5 inches on the outside. That'll be visible. All this other is going to be covered by the sides. So I'm about ready to get done with this transom. I have got a horrible mess here because I am running out of room, so I am going to be so excited to get this thing welded up, and then I can finally clean up this mess. So I'm going to get that done and get a good cleanup on here.